AI will not go away, and also the AI's influence into the society will be always attached to a human. Future is blank and empty paper and only belongs to the people who has the strong mind to draw, to pen on them, make change. No matter how small it is, make change. And one small change is the greatest start point of the biggest change ever in the life.
Welcome back to the Human Capitalist Podcast. I am your host, Trent Cotton, and today I have one of my favorite CEOs and partners with me today, Steven with HireEZ. Steven, welcome to the show.
Hey, Trent. Thank you for having me here. I am very
Absolutely.
excited to chat with you.
Yeah, and just to disqualify or a qualifier, I am a very long time client of HireEZ, so I'm a big fanboy. Love you, love the product. Really love working with your team, Shannon and Daniel, and all the rest of them are just always fantastic and supportive. So if you're listening and you're like, God, usually he's pretty objective. He seems to be really waning over HireEZ. Now you know why. So I said it on the outset. But Steven, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of go through your background for everyone?
Sure. I am the co-founder and CEO at HireEZ. And it's been 10 years since I started this company, and very lucky to work with many people like you and to help us build this business. And we have an office in Mountain View, California, and also a lot of office in Dallas. So today I'm in the Dallas office. So Chandler, you and I are friends for many years. And
Yes.
thank you for the friendship, and also thank you for the partnership.
Well, it's fantastic. I like how I always position HireEZ as it's the one tool that's built for recruiters. It's not like most applicant tracking systems. Let's use that as an example. I have a love-hate relationship with them. Most of them are actually built for the HRS. It's like an afterthought, but you all really have the user experience. You're almost borderline obsessed with it. And, as a user, I'm very appreciative of that. But the interesting thing is that you all were using machine learning and AI way before it became nice, cool, and sexy.
Yeah, and we started this company by seeing this very exciting opportunity that at that time the search engine was very poor at search the professional data, but then the professional side, and they were not good at AI and data intelligence at all. Then we say, okay, we use the intelligence, like search engines as intelligence, and leverage the professional data in the open web to solve the sourcing issue. That's how we started HireEZ. So yeah, and we have been very technology driven. So I also work with a lot of recruiters to truly understand how recruiters work. So, and we benefit from learning from recruiters, from people like you, so HR leaders.
It's been fun to watch the technology take off. So you have a pretty unique benefit. I mean, you're highly technical, but you're also plugged into the HR community. You and I have talked about how I define human capital as very different than HR. But if you were to look, and I'm not even going to say 5 years because I don't know that anyone is stupid enough to say this is where we'll be in 5 years. So let's just do 1 to 2 years. With all of the changes going on in human capital, what are some of the things that you're seeing that are changing?
So, and when we're talking about what is changing and also what will be changing in 1 or 2 years, actually 1 and 2 years in this environment means a very long
It
time.
is a long time. Yeah.
I agree with you. No one can predict more than 2 years, in my opinion. Right? But
Yeah.
but let's take one step back and look at what was changing, right? And what has been changing. And human capital especially in the labor market, is changing so much. I somehow I feel there's a great shifting has been ongoing for at least a decade. So, and we look at the labor market and look at how technology advance and the technology advancement impact the labor market, and also let's look at the uh, I think the policy and regulations also change, right? And also the demographics. So, and all those there's a three big things. They are continuously impact the coming 1 to 2 years,
Right.
and the labor market, in my opinion, we have the crisis of new skills the future requires, and the supply gap that that today's labor, that today's people have. So that would be a very interesting word to see.
Mm. Well, and I know, and we'll kind of dig into this a little bit later with the rollout that HireEZ just did not too long ago, implementing and putting in agents. But how do you think agent world is going to impact HR? What would be some predictions you have?
Uh, the very simple way to think the impact of agentic AI for recruiters, and can be also for HR professionals. And it's about now we democratize the resources and knowledge for TA professionals, for HR professionals, and everybody now is not lack of knowledge and not lack of the resources. Then it will get back to what truly matters for the job, right? And I don't know that much about HR. Okay, that's your domain expertise, but recruiting, I
Hmm.
certainly know something. A recruiter's value is about finding the best talent for their own business, okay, for their company's business. Then that is the true value. And instead of being, oh, I'm very good at using this technology tool and I'm very good at using that tool, right? So using tools or say spending time on tools, that is not a core business. And a core business will be pushed back to the recruiters of true value, finding the talent, okay, being that strategic and being that proactive. So that's how I see the role, the evolving role of the recruiters must be different and should be different now. And they should be more, uh, I call it a strategist or the
Right.
advisory, that role. So you agree, Chad?
Completely. Yeah, completely. And I like the term strategist. I've been using the term advisor, but you know, I mean, you talk to a lot of recruiters, and I got my start in HR and recruiting, and that was always my goal. I wanted to be that strategist, the kind of the counselor for all things talent. But then whenever I got into recruiting, all the paperwork and the crazy busyness and the processes and stuff, I really see agents as a way to kind of get people out of that. Let the agents handle that kind of stuff, and it's going to elevate recruiters, I think, which is to me, it's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And recruiting is a hard job, right? And everybody say that, but I have a specific data can show people. You know, the other day I compared the sales marketing funnel versus recruiting funnel.
It's
That
the same.
yes, the shape is the same, but the conversion rate very different. Sales usually 20, 20 meetings we book one business, okay? Will be one business, 20 to 1. But recruiting 250 or something to 1. 250 applications to generate one hire. See, selling product versus selling talent, different.
Yes, and that's fascinating. Because whenever I got into recruiting, I came out of like financial sales, and that to me was something that was incredibly missing out of the practice. Was how am I going to manage all the people that I'm talking to that said, "Hey, call me in 2 months, call me after I get my incentive check." And so I had to build my, and in Access back in the day. So I built my own Access database and a little interface and everything, so that way I could keep up with all the prospects, my COIs and everything. But to me, it was an easy transition coming out of sales, because that's all recruiting is managing those relationships, managing the pipeline, and being able to strike whenever the iron's hot. So that's but I never thought about the conversion rate. That's some interesting stats there. Never stopped and thought about that.
Yeah, I see the recruiting is the process that technology can help a lot. And in the past decades, actually, it was changed and improved by technology a lot already. But now with generative AI and agentic AI, it will be much more significantly so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, are there any AI trends that you're watching, and why?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I am ex especially interested in knowing the what's the capability boundary of this new generative AI, and also what that means to the labor market. Okay, um, and let's say for the white collar jobs and blue collar jobs. So when the generative AI has been widely adopted, used in the office environment, or the robotics, and got it mature and with all the uh, great breakthroughs and what it means to the manufacturing and to the transportation, right? And all those industries. And this then this is not something that today we are prepared, and also this won't be too far away. So, and this is something I don't have a clear answer, but I'm very interested in seeing a lot of those research and to see well, where the future can look like.
It's interesting. You remember the port strike that was what, toward the end of last year? It it was interesting to me that the biggest bone of contention is that they were fighting against automation and AI coming in and replacing jobs. That was one of the many reasons that the union struck so hard. And I'm thinking, wow, and what happened? Okay, well, we're not going to do automation this much. We're not going to do this. They had to acquiesce, because if not, it would have sent the economy into a free fall. But I'm just kind of waiting to see how many more industries kind of throw their fist up and say, we're not doing this. It's going to be fun to watch. Painful, but I think it'll be fun to watch. But I'm sadistic whenever it comes to watching how people react to things. So let's switch gears a little bit. You've been a leader. What is a unique people problem that you had to solve, and what did it teach you?
This is a hard question. Okay, very hard question.
I told you I wasn't going to be easy on you.
I think for my company, the biggest people issue is myself. Okay, see, I made the
Really?
biggest mistakes. Yeah, I made the biggest mistakes, and I made the most mistakes, and also the costs of those mistakes are the highest, right? So, uh, and the biggest challenge is about myself and uh how to push myself every day, every week, every month, and to be a better version of myself, right? With the growth in the right direction and in the right way, and put my ego, put my blind spot, and put my stupidness in the cage, right? Control it, and in the meantime, I can be uh, humble enough and open-minded enough to learn from the people who are working with me, and listen more, speak less, and listen fast, but speak slow. And that's something I try to learn. And uh, I somehow learned one thing in the past 10 years. So I founded this company in 2015. all the mistakes my people made, I made the similar or same mistakes. So it's hard to blame people if they look at me, hey, you are just do the same thing. Okay, so
Mhm.
I I think that's I don't know how to use the uh professional HR term to describe that, but I want to say that the biggest issue of a team is that a leader of that team. The biggest issue of that a company, I'm saying people issue is that a CEO. Trust me.
I wish more CEOs were that self-aware about that. There's a term that's called what is it called? The fish rots at the head, and you've kind of nailed that. That if you've got the wrong mindset, the wrong processes, the wrong behaviors at the top of the house, then you can't be surprised whenever everyone else in the organization is acting that way. So if you've got a CEO that throws fits whenever they get angry, you should not be surprised that anyone all the way down to a frontline worker throws a fit whenever they get angry. Um, very insightful. I wasn't expecting that answer. I like that.
I didn't expect
Um,
that question either. So somewhere I
well,
probably
good.
need to.
Well, both of us were surprised.
Okay.
So you've already talked a little bit about the workforce, but what are some predictions that you see? Let's just fast forward to 2030. I know it's 5 years away and it's kind of crazy, but you're seeing how quickly things are evolving. What are some of the impacts on the workforce? And then a follow-up question is, what can someone who's listening to this that may be impacted by AI, what could they start doing to make sure that they're ready for that change? So kind of a two-part question for you.
So by 2030, based on today's technology's advancement, the pace. Okay, when we talk about technology, and we always just talk about the AI, actually there are 2 to 3 other technologies impact the labor market a lot. So let me give you one example. The
Okay.
platformized the labor. Okay, so before we didn't have that many gig, but now so many gig workers. Okay, we cannot ignore that multiple millions of those workers. Okay, so that were created by the technology, but that technology is called platform. Okay, so like Airbnb and like DoorDash, right? And they create those jobs. And now the future, if we further break the job into tasks or
Mm-hmm.
projects, and then each project break into the atomic format of the tasks, then the whole society will be with a lot, like trillions of tasks instead of millions of jobs, right? And then if the granularity come to that so much smaller scale, and how can we prepare the technology, prepare the future corporate for that future, right? And that's something we need to think about. And that's about the platform, right? The platform will create a lot of fine granularity job. And AI is another thing. And so today, the uh, autonomy is about semi-autonomous. Okay, so that's
Right.
where we are. But then what if uh, in 3 years, in 5 years, it's a full autonomy? And are we prepared for that? No, at this moment, no. And are we going to? So, and at that time, a lot of jobs, today's white collar jobs will uh, declines quicker than we thought. Okay. And then the new skills and the new jobs can that be created fast enough? Right. And so, and that's something we also need to look at the future. And if we think about 2030, and also the demographics, right? And we have the aging population,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have a very low labor participation rate, even for the point age, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we have so many geopolitical shifts, right? The realignment, and so those will also impact the labor market in United States. So those are big things. we think 2030, it sounds 5 years later, but it's very close. And all the three things are real, right? Technology,
Mm-hmm.
demographics, and the macro politics.
Yeah, it's a lot of change. I mean, if you look back generationally, there have been like some kind of big high moments, going mobile, going web, going to the cloud, but I don't think all of them are as permeating as the AI initiative or involvement is, and also the whole, what do you call it? Just every time I turn around, there's a new AI tool. And it's like, I just learned this one. Now I need to compare, is this one better? Is this one now that I'm using irrelevant? I don't remember anything changing at the pace that we're seeing, at least in the last 18 months. Even the AI that we were using 18 months ago, 6, 7 months ago is nothing compared to what's being rolled out now. It's mind blowing.
Chat, and your feeling is right. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
for in a lot of the cases, and the technology and in Silicon Valley, and that is bloated and to be like, oh, it's changing the world. Yeah, but then in the real world, we are working daily, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we fear, hey, why those are tools and why those software cannot embed it into my daily workflow naturally? Um, and that's something my engineering team and I we talk a lot about how can we design a product so that we understand recruiters' daily work and then
Mm-hmm.
naturally integrate into their daily workflow to create the value in the place where the productivity happens, right? So that's the product philosophy. Uh, That's a lot of fascinating story, and I can talk all day long. But back to your topic, it's about uh, the technology from the technology to product. There's a gap.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only gap, it's a chasm. So, and then the product will create the true value and change our daily life and work, not technology. Technology is something behind to empower that to happen. But then on the other side, we also need to keep in mind all the change are not linear. It's accumulating the energy, and all of a sudden, and people embrace it, start to accept it, right? So chatbot has been there for 30 years, but then ChatGPT in 2022, right? Last day of November 2022, then let's say December 2022, all of a sudden the whole world embraced it, right? Accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that a chat I want to accept. Right? So
It's
it's not
and
linear.
and Well, and two with this is it's kind of superseding generational bounds, which to me is fascinating. So, my father still works. I think he's retiring at the end of this year. I don't think he'll retire. He'll probably go back and work part time. But um, he was born in '58. But I get my interest and intrigue and curiosity about tech from him. I mean, he bought us a computer whenever they were still really really expensive and we weren't that rich. Um, because he knew, he was like, I want you to know this. I want you to understand this because this is where things are going. And that was back in the late '80s, early '90s. But he called me not too long ago because he said, I sent him, he wanted to hear one of the talks that I did and somebody posted on YouTube. So I sent it to him. And so he sends me a text, you got a minute? I was like, yeah. So he runs a region for a company in kind of the construction supplies space. And he says, you were teaching me about this AI thing. So I went on this chat GPT and I've been playing around with this and it did this. And like he was curious. And it was something really funny that he said. He goes, the only part that I am envious that I am retiring at this stage is that I wish that I was just starting my career because I can't wait to see where this is going to go. And I thought, that's kind of interesting coming from a different generation of almost having remorse going, God, I'm not going to be around to see all of the advancements that this is going to do. And so he had like his little basic prompt, Stephen, and then I said, well, what problem are you trying to solve? And so he was telling me, and I said, okay. And so he sent me the the data set. And so I cleaned it up a little bit, did a prompt, and I sent it to him. I said, use this prompt. He goes, that's a lot. I said, Dad, just use it. And so he puts it in there and he goes, it did all of this. I said, yes, it can do a lot of things. But I mean, now, I mean, we didn't talk a lot, but now it's, once a day, every other day, I'm getting something. Well, how do I change my prompt here? And how do I do this? And what do you suggest? And I love the curiosity of it. So to me, that's something that's kind of interesting is usually you have the technology being embraced by kind of the newer generations. This one's spanning the entire control, right?
Yeah, yeah. I see. This is a fascinating story. And by the way, I I uh I can feel you are proud of your dad, and your dad must be proud of you, and you somehow have a great relationship. And that's great. Okay. And something special about your dad is that he he embraced the new things so quickly. Right. And this is something my very close friend Jeff K. And he said, Steven, do you know, for people like you usually ignore one thing, right? And you always think the new dogs can learn the new tricks, but you don't know, you underestimate the old dogs can also learn the new tricks. But then the new dog usually cannot learn the old tricks.
Right.
So and he said, if I put a young folks, the recruiters, and then learn the old tricks means talk with people on the phone naturally, right? With that
Yeah.
chemistry naturally generated. How
Yeah.
many people can? Right? And he experienced and he tested a lot, and not too many young people. Then it's about the people elements,
It
okay,
is.
people skills. But then the young people can use the computer, right, and type
Yeah.
like they can play the piano, okay. So
Yeah.
that's something very interesting. I think your dad is special, and be proud of him.
I am. Yeah. I do want to kind of hit on something though that you said. Actually, two things. We'll go to the most recent, but yes, the younger generation of recruiters, they're really great about sending out messages and, using the mail merge and using all these things to reach as many candidates. But to your point, there is a lot that I can get usually from the first 5 or 10 minutes, picking up the phone and saying, hey, Stephen, I got your resume. It doesn't quite fit what I'm looking for, but I feel like there's a story that I need to hear. Let me ask you a couple of questions just to kind of give you a second chance. And, if you look at my resume, it looks like it has multiple personalities, but until I explain, there is a common thread in there. I do think that, we gotta in recruiting and HR in general, you gotta balance the technology with the people side. Because if not, then why do you just take the human out of human resources? Just call it resources. you know, doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And Chad, let me share my personal experience with you, okay?
Okay.
I saw your picture on LinkedIn. I thought you were a like very serious and like not that easygoing
Yeah.
and also cold, okay, cold.
Hmm.
That type of HR person, okay.
Hmm.
But then when we talk, no, you're
Yeah.
you're very easygoing, funny, right? And just just great
Yeah.
feeling. People feel great. So I think
Hmm.
I get your point.
Yeah. There's been candidates that I have throughout my career that I just, I look at it and I go, something's not adding. And so I'll pick up the phone and call them and I'll fall in love with them. And it may not be for the job that I was recruiting for at the time, but I'm like, that's Steven. He and I, he has got a great background. It wasn't right for this job, but I want him in the company. And so every time something was coming open, I was thinking, would Steven be a fit for this? And to me, that's one of the lost arts that you're talking about, is that keeping that pipeline of people that you're like, if I could get these 10 people in the organization, we would grow exponentially because they're top performers or they're going to add something that we're missing. And I just want to urge recruiters that are just out there just pounding away at emails and all of that, take the time and put the personal back in. I do want to go back though. You mentioned something about you and your engineer sitting down and saying, okay, how can we weave in AI and all of this into the recruiter's like normal daily life? And
Mhm.
I think it's really interesting, that approach. How did you go about this when you were creating? I know you all just released Agentic. So one, for someone that maybe this is the first time they've listened and they don't understand the different types of AI, can you explain to them what Agentic is? And then how did you go about saying, this is what we want to do, and how do we put this into the product in a way that recruiters would like?
Yeah. Uh, there's no like standard definition of agentic AI for the software development yet. Okay, so um, but my personal understanding of AI agent or agentic AI is about two things. First, and it has the certain intelligence, right? And I think it's a semi-autonomous level, and that intelligence can use tools, using tools, right? That the tools can be database and can be APIs, can be third-party applications, but certainly that semi-autonomous intelligence is able to use tools. Okay, that's very important. And second is about the multi-step execution, the multi-step planning, reasoning, and execution. And that's the second core differentiation of agentic AI versus other typical generative AI or the previous NLP technologies. Okay, so then for our product, why we decided to go to agentic AI for two reasons. And first, over the past years, we observed one thing very, very interesting, okay? And absolutely blowed mind. Recruiters, the biggest problem. Recruiters, the biggest problem is the recruiting software. And how many your recruiters, right? And you work with
Yep.
many, many other recruiters and you manage them. How many of them didn't struggle at learning and mastering the recruiting software? And I think of, right? And then they learned the one tool and work so hard to learn, and then they cannot get rid of, right? And LinkedIn is the best example, but they spend a lot of time on learning that a boolean string and that a certain click, this click, that click. They spend a lot of time of on learning the software. So then the recruiting software is their biggest problem. So and then all of a sudden, and we also evaluate recruiters based on, even we didn't call it, but then fundamentally we evaluate their value, or their value has been determined by how good they are at using software. Why they need to be judged in that way. Okay, so then we say, okay, we got to make a recruiting software easy to use for everybody. That a barrier should be removed. Then we judge recruiters' value based on their true value, finding the right people for their business. Okay, so that's one reason. And second reason, the agentic AI is the trend, the absolutely the trending for the future software development. And if you look at how it design and develop agent, it's completely different than the traditional and typical enterprise software development. Okay, and now
Right.
it's much less UI UX. It's a lot into how to get things done, and that people focus on what it is and they interpret what it is to the corresponding tools, right? Mostly APIs. And so then the distance between users and software is almost no distance. It's just one prompt away. Yeah. So two reasons.
It's very interesting. And then how, I guess, an interesting fact that I found whenever I was doing some research, that the recruitment technology sector of HR tech, so take HR tech is growing. There's a lot of growth projections between now and 2030, but just the TA portion is expected to grow from, I think, roughly 500 million is where it sits now, to 1.1 billion dollars in value. What do you think is driving that specifically on the recruiting side, that valuation?
This is a great growth, right? Almost 50%, right? 45%.
Yeah, it's almost, yeah, in,
Yeah.
in 5 years, no less.
Wow. So crazy. See, and forget about it's a $1 billion or it's a $7 billion, right? Different reports and they give a different number, but the growth itself is
Yeah.
for real. Recruiting. I think the reason behind, if we take that growth, that prediction as the fact, then we think what's the fundamental reason behind. I think would be first, the evolving business will evaluate talent way better than before. And if we look at the every generation of a technology, people are getting more and more expensive,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
People are getting more and more expensive. Why? Because the new skill, the new talent we have, all the hidden talent we have got more value, more dollars on it. So
Right.
then naturally, the recruiting technology, uh, the way how to look at the recruiting technology is market size. Maybe is equal to certain percentage multiplied by people's payroll. Okay, that's a
So,
recruiting. Yeah, that's a recruiting's market size. I think that might be the driving power behind, because the business is getting more value, evolving, being different, but then they also need to evaluate the talent, the future talent much more.
well, and if you think of the TA, I didn't have a chance to really kind of dig in. Whenever I was looking at TA sector within HR, does that include the assessments? Does that include, the just the sourcing or the applicant tracking? Like, what all is involved in that number? Because if it's looking at interview software, if it's looking at analytics and assessments, if it's looking at ATS and platforms like yours that are really focused on top funnel, then yeah, that does make sense. That it would continue to increase in terms of value. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in HR tech outside of TA?
Um, I think the human capital's definition will be adjusted or changed. So, and think about this in the future, regardless,
Mm-hmm.
AI will not go away, and also the AI's and people separate the AI and human too much. So the AI's influence into the society will be always attached to a human. So for example,
Right.
you write the email, you text message me, but that is generated by GPT. Okay, so then that's you, Trent Cotton, or that's a GPT.
Yeah.
I think it is both, right? But
Right.
then and then I think our relationship is getting better and enhanced. But then that's from you, right? And from the identity's point of view, that's from you. So if a trend with the AI has been a new version of a trend, then
Mm-hmm.
can I use the previous definition to define you and also to manage you in my so-called human resources? Because that resource is different. That a human is also different. So that's a something will be very interesting. Okay, and I think
Yeah.
the HR should be very different. And also you look at the future today. What's the previously the productivity unit in the industrial revolution? It's a one factory, but
Mm-hmm.
then data becomes one corporate. Okay, today it's a one corporate company, but in the future, is it possible that being one person or even one agent, that is the minimum unit of production, right? And for example, the DoorDash, take a DoorDash, okay, we use every day. You think people work for machine or machine work for people? It's an endless argument, okay? So, and then what's the minimum unit of a productivity? If that is not easy to define, and then the HR cannot be defined either. Okay, so but you are in a very hot position now, okay, to think about that future definition of HR.
Yeah, and you know I think the opportunity for HR to be 50% human, 50% agent, that 50% human is going to be so much more impactful, because it's not chasing down I-9s, it's not checking and doing all these process flows and things like that. It's focused on having those human to human conversations. And I don't know. I guess I understand the fear, but I don't understand the fear in HR right now, because to me, whenever I see that, I'm like, bring it. I'm ready. I want to spend more time on the strategy, and I'd like to just be able to have time to connect a thought, or finish a thought, not have to context switch. If I got to have an agent doing that kind of stuff, I think it'd be great. The it's so fascinating, like just kind of again, watching HireEZ and how you all have transformed and stayed ahead of the curve. Is there anything at night that kind of keeps you up going, all right, how am I going to keep up with some of the trends and some of the changes going through?
Yes. Okay. But first of all, I want to
I'd be
clarify
worried if it
one thing.
wasn't.
I am very good sleeper. Okay, so uh, easy for me to fall into the deep sleep. Okay, so that's the talent. Okay, uh,
I love
but
it.
certain things I also very cautious about. Um, it's about the how can we uh keep the pace and to catch up and even lead this TA transformation. Um, and one example I want to give is that back in 2023, in the middle of 2023, my co-founder and CTO and I we fought a lot about, hey, should we give up the NLP, the knowledge graph we built over the past years as our main AI infra, or we should decisively switch and rebuild our infra based on the large language model. And you think about you spend 8 years on building something and it works, but then you somehow fear that will be destroyed by this new uh, language technology. Okay, and it turns out yes, it's clearly now we look back, it's way better build
Yeah.
things based on the large language model. Okay, but then at that time that was struggling. And then we had to delight ourselves decisively. Okay, and then reborn from there. Now all the cool things you are seeing and we delivered extremely fast was because of that. Like 2 years ago, we had that fight. Okay, but he and I we are brothers. Okay, so we always fight, always fight. Yeah, and now everything is going looks like everything is going well and in the right direction. Is it true? Is it just because my feeling, my ego, or that's something bigger ahead
Mm-hmm.
that I missed? So that keeps me up at night.
That makes sense. I can feel you on that, not on the technology side, but on a couple of other fronts. So you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yes.
All right. So what is a book that changed your perspective on business and or HR?
Okay. Say that question again. So the
So what is a book that changed
book.
your changed your opinion about business or taught you something about business?
Okay. See. I one thing that okay. I want to tell a true version of myself again. My
Okay.
wife criticized me all the time. You don't read a book that much. Yeah, that's also true. Okay.
Yeah.
very slow reading. Okay.
Yeah.
But I love the biograph. Okay. So for example, I think the most influential book to me recent years is the one probably everybody reads. Okay. Steve Jobs.
Okay.
So, and two things that shocked me. First, and he is just that normal human. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of emotions he had.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of terrible things I did, he did. Nothing special from the human's point of view. From human's
Yeah.
point of view. And
Yeah.
second thing, he is a so much stick to something that he wants to achieve. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's so determined to the certain point that I strongly believe, and because of that book, and I started to look at the future in a different way, and I shared this with some of my friends. I said, future is blank and empty
Mm-hmm.
paper, right? And only belongs to the people who has the strong mind to draw, to paint on it. So basically
Mm-hmm.
means future is a random. It can be in any format, and only the strong mind will twist the future in your way. That's what I
Mm.
did. A huge influential.
I love that. It reminds me of a quote my grandmother said: "You can either be a victim of change or the one that's leading it."
Yes.
Two
Oh,
totally different mindsets.
that's a better quote. Okay, that's a better quote.
she had some good ones. There's a lot of times I'll say something and someone goes, "Oh, that's deep." I said, "That was my grandmother. That was not me. I heard it all of my life." So do you listen to podcasts or anything like that?
I definitely listen to your podcast.
Well, I
Okay,
appreciate that.
yep. So and before I listened to 2 to 3, and you also know they are probably top 10 most popular ones. But then I stopped listening to those podcasts, listened much less and less, right? Because all of a sudden, I mean, all those famous ones, and they went to too polarized opinions, and especially go to the politics world. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I listened to the uh, YouTube channels who talked
Mm-hmm.
about the research, who talked about the history, and who talk about even philosophy. Okay, so I love those knowledge things, and not only knowledge. I think it's about something when you so after like 14, 16 hours of work, I uh, I will spend some time on walking around, right, in my house, just
Mm-hmm.
walking. I turn off all the lights, right? And my wife, my son, and they sleep, and then I walk. Just want to amplify, right? And at that moment, I listen to those channels. So
Oh, nice. So that's kind of your come down. It's your unpacking the day.
yeah, and otherwise, the second day I will become the the devil to others.
I understand. Oh, I understand. I'm that way about the gym. I tell people I work out for everyone's safety and for my vanity. So it kind of accomplishes two goals. So if anyone wanted to reach out and connect with you, is it best to find you on LinkedIn, or do you have other handles that you can share?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm Steven Jiang, right? And
Mhm.
HireEZ, and you can find me easily. And my LinkedIn's handle is Steven HireEZ.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And then what is one piece of advice or a mic drop moment that you want to leave the audience with?
For HR and recruiters,
Yep.
make change. No matter how small it is, make change. And one small change is the greatest start point of the biggest change ever in your life. And that's the moment, make small change.
Love it. Love it. Starts today. Well, Steven, always enjoy chatting with you, and I appreciate you taking some time. I know how busy you are, and I am excited about the rollout, and I can't wait to see what else you have up your sleeve at HireEZ. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Chant.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Human Capitalist. This channel is all about community, so comment, subscribe, and join the conversation. This is Trent Cotton, your Human Capitalist, signing off. Remember, invest in yourself, own your potential, and keep building your own human capital. I'll see you next time.